October the 19th, 2020. Guys, this is an update on the 7.5 earthquake up in Alaska. And there's comments on my channel that were saying that it's about an 8.5, and it was much worse than they're saying. So we'll have to kind of let the smoke clear and see what's going on there. But again, I've had time to go back and look at the data that's coming in from all of the information. We're seeing the buoys across the northern sections of the Ring of Fire going off, and some alerts going as far south as down into Hawaii, guys. But Earth's weather is space weather, and that's where it comes from, is space. The sun controls what's called the heliosphere, and all of the planets of the solar system are within that sphere, just like the Earth has a shield, a magnetosphere. Magnetopoles is part of that. In a much larger, if you look at it in a much larger section, the heliosphere encompasses everything. So what happens within that happens to all the planets. Of course, the closer you are to the sun, the more impact you're going to have. But one of the links that's been here for 10 years or so, and as many of them have, guys, is space weather. So if you come down to the left, come right here and click on space weather. And this is where you'll come. Let me point out a couple of things while we're here. In the top middle, it says meteors from Halley's Comet. And it says Earth is entering a stream of debris from Halley's Comet, sources of the annual Orion meteor shower. Over the weekend, NASA's all-sky cameras detected 9 Orion fireballs, a sign that the shower is getting underway. Forecasters expect as many as 20 per hour when this shower peaks on October 21st, and that's 2 days away. And a lot of times you're dealing with UTC time here. It says for the best time to look is Wednesday morning during the hours before sunrise. And we'll look at that sky map. Also, you've got some information about the sunspots. But here, going back to space weather affects the Earth's weather, come into the top left, and I want you to come under the solar wind speed chart. And you've got the ACE satellite and the Discover satellite. For this video, I'm going to click on Discover. Now that'll bring you here, guys, and that's going to show you 3 things about the solar wind. The density, which is in centimeters cubed, and that means the amount of protons and other energy that's within that solar wind. Then the wind speed, and this is critical because of the earthquakes and the pressure that's put on our planet, especially during grand solar minimum. As we continue into that process, that pressure on our magnetosphere transfers into the tectonic plates of our Earth. The scientists won't agree on this, guys, but you and I have been watching it for maybe 10 years now, and every time one of the big quakes happen, usually I can show you why. But the wind speed jumped, and let's just kind of scan through here. This is going back to the 17th. Now, right here at 00, we're into the 18th. Again, that's universal time. But as we get here into 1019, you're going to see an increase in the solar wind speed. Now, you may not think this is much. It's 310 kilometers per second. Then right here, let's look at the universal time at the bottom. 2020, October 19th, 1321. Now, let's just move forward as we see this spike increase. October 19th, 1354. We get close to the peak here, 1530 in this area. That equates, regardless of what the scientists tell you, and I don't know why they would hide the information. Why would they hide that? It's an early warning system to our planet, but it's obvious, and they have nothing to lose. But they won't do it. Again, 2020, October 19th, 1533, an increase of solar wind speed from 300, roughly in this area, coming up to 348, but coming up to 423, guys. And this is what's important about this wind speed, 423 kilometers per second. Guys, you're approaching almost 500,000 miles per hour. It's inconceivable by the human mind. But the more important aspect of it is that during grand solar maximum, or the solar peaks of each 11.8-year cycle, Jupiter's orbit, the sun's binary twin, that is, if we're into solar maximum at the peak of it, it takes a lot more wind speed than this to affect the Earth's surface. I've seen it go from, you're looking at 400 up to 1,500, 1,600 kilometers per second, and still it would affect the Earth, but because our shields were so strong during that period of time, it had less effect. And maybe to clarify, if you have an electric motor and it's not hooked up, you got a hot wire and a ground wire on it, guys, then you apply voltage and amperage, the motor will spin faster and faster. And that's what happens when you get solar wind coming in. The Earth is like a big motor in a way, in the center, the way the electromagnetic field expands outward. And if you had a meter which we have on our website that would measure electromagnetic fields, you would understand exactly what I'm saying. So as the sun is in maximum, a lot of solar wind, you got a lot of solar flares, coronal mass ejections, large earthquakes like Fukushima, then the gyros of the north and south pole of the planet, which are like a ground and a negative, they become energized. The Earth spins, the inner part of the Earth is spinning at an energy level, although it may be indistinct as far as speed, which it is definitely a little faster, but the generation of the magnetic fields, our shields, are much stronger. In other words, it's the dynamo effect. So when the sun's weak, we have less shields, and so smaller amounts of a jump in solar wind speed, like we're seeing here again, where we're looking at 1,500 hours here, 1,548, notice the bottom. Then when that happens, we have a greater effect on our planet. That's why space weather is Earth's weather, but it's also all the planets' weather. Now guys, this is the information coming in from the USGS, and we're showing again the 7.5 that was southeast of Sandpoint Island. There's people, at least one person, talking about it was an 8.5 and it's worse than they are saying. But let me point out something, and it is right here. Let me draw a line to the UTC time, 15:54:40, okay? Today, on the 19th, 15:54. What did I just show you on the increase in the solar wind speed in that spike? Exactly this time. And so my point is that, guys, we are completely controlled by the sun, and you've heard me talk about something that should be enlightening to many, and the fact that is that one of these angels, as the beast kingdom is rising to power, whether it's from the 5 system of internet networks going up that controls it, anything to block out the Schumann resonance, the alpha and beta waves, which are basically the God frequency. But what happens in Revelation? The angel pours out that vial upon the sun, and the beast kingdom is cast into darkness, shuts all of those weapons of the enemy down. And so as we look at, a lot of people look at the sun as man, it can cause a lot of trouble. Well, when God is ready for it, the sun's going to end a lot of trouble. But here's what we're dealing with, exactly what I've talked about for years, guys. You see the peak at the time of that solar wind speed coming into a planet with weak shields. And the more that we have these large colliders working around the planets, not just in Switzerland on the Franco-Swiss border of CERN, then they are relying on not only the currents in the upper atmosphere that has direct effect on our shields. That's why your compass works, shows north from south. It's picking up those magnetic shields, those field lines. But when you see these large colliders peak up in energy, they're even pulling from the ground currents. We've talked about this many times. So as their hope, they love it when we have these high energy bursts, when they're conducting experiments, because it allows their energy to be increased. Imagine the old Frankenstein movie needing the lightning to hit to reanimate. And in this sense, it is more like opening a gate. Some say it's to let demons in. I say it's that they want to escape before the wrath of Christ comes. Again, you've got the tribulation of Jesus Christ, or the tribulation of man that Christ talked about. Excuse me, let me correct that. And then the 4 angels come. The ones that are holding the winds back from the 4 corners of the earth. And then a 5th angel comes, and you should recognize him by the fact that he comes from the east, a mighty angel. And he says, stop before you destroy anything else. I want you to go to the 4 corners of the earth and seal in the forehead, not a mark of the beast, but the mark of God, the true gospel. And you see a lot of people saved at that point. Then, guys, honestly, you got the tribulation of man, and people think that if you believe in the rapture, a lot of them, that you're not going to see that. We're all going to see that. But then after that comes the wrath of God, and that's what you want to escape, because that wrath of God is not meant for you and I. It's meant for the people that, as you see in Revelation, they continue to all the plagues that come in. This is, again, after the return of Christ. When that happens, we are changed. Twinkle of an eye. After that, if you understand Revelation, then there's a lot of bad things that happen. And what happens is, it says that men will not turn away from their sins, no matter what happens. And so, it's a separation. It's rightly dividing the Word of God. But guys, when you see these solar events like this, remember there's one that's going to happen that's going to shut down the kingdom of the beast. It will be cast into darkness. And then remember, the earth is consumed by fire this time, not by flood. So it's good to understand what you're dealing with. But our prayers go out to all the folks along the Aleutian Islands. Some are saying that there's small watches even as far south as Hawaii. But guys, here's what we're dealing with, and that is weak shields during solar minimum, being affected by even the smallest changes in our sun. It's a heads up, guys. Be safe.